Hello and welcome everybody to Civils 360. My name is Veer Pratap Singh and I welcome you all. My dear friends, in this session, we are going to be talking about an important event that is associated with the modern Indian history. Why? Because it is a very significant thing, okay, associated with the syllabus of the modern Indian history. Why? Because, guys, if you can just correlate to the idea, okay, here, let me just tell you the thing that the UPSC, okay, in its syllabus, okay, if you have read the syllabus, you might have understood that the UPSC, it is clearly telling that they are going to ask you what? They are going to ask you significant events. Okay, they can ask you significant events, significant personalities, and significant issues. Okay, so here in this session, we shall be talking about a significant event that happened in the year of 1905. Okay, and this particular significant event, it left a very deliable impact, okay, in the coming time period. And the event, okay, it is going to be somewhat of a churning ground of the political movements, of the future political movements that are going to happen in the country. Okay, so let's just start with this particular scenario. Okay, so in the today's session, my dear friends, we shall be discussing on the Swadeshi movement. Okay, we shall be discussing on the Swadeshi movement. However, let me just tell you something associated with the Swadeshi movement and something on the backdrop of it, that what happened in the background that led to the creation of the Swadeshi movement. Why? Because, my dear friends, just try to understand this, that what is history actually. We are already very much aware about that the history is going to be a very intricate relation of cause and effect. Okay, so whatever is the effect today, okay, it is going to have a cause in the past, and that cause could be a effect of a certain cause that happened much earlier, and that could be a certain effect for something that could have happened much earlier. So it is what? Cause effect, cause effect, cause effect, cause effect. So history is this. We are also aware that what is history? It is a chronological study of all the historic events, of all the important events that have occurred in the past. So here also, when we are talking about the Swadeshi movement, so this particular movement, it is going to emerge during the time period of 1905. However, it is not it is not going to just start it on the 1905. Something might have happened right in the past that would have led to the start of the Swadeshi movement. Okay, we'll also look into the basic facts. What is the meaning of Swadeshi? What is the idea and everything? But prior to that, we also need to understand that what is the ideology of it? What is the ideology of Swadeshi? And who are the people who are going to bring the idea of Swadeshi here? So when we talk about this idea, let us just understand that, okay, here, when we talk about this aspect, so here what happened is that we are aware that in the year of 1885, there was the first pan-India level political association, that is the Indian National Congress, that was created. Now, the Indian National Congress, when it was created, the Indian National Congress, it is the political party, and within this political party, there were multiple people who are going to be members of this political outfit. Now, this political party INC, it was created to increase nationalism within the country and to demand the various rights and to demand the various things from the Britishers for the Indians. So the INC, the Indian National Congress, it is going to have within itself the members, and those members, they were known as nationalists. Now those nationalists, that means the nationalistic leaders like Dadabhai Nauroji, okay, Vyomesh Chandra Banerjee, Baharuddin Tayyabji, Surendranath Banerjee, all of these people. Okay, so these people, they were known as nationalists. Now we can divide those nationalists into two sections. One is going to be known as the moderates, another it is going to be known as the extremists. Now when we talk about the moderates and the extremists, okay, means the Congress was dominated by moderate nationalists at one point of time, and the Congress was dominated by extreme nationalists at another point of time. Okay, and if I divide the time frame, you might be aware, as you have already done the INC, that it is going to be from the time period of 1885 till the time period of 1905. And the extreme nationalistic Congress phase, it is going to be from 1905 till 1911 or 1918. Means you can, the end time it is somewhat debatable. Okay, so we can also talk on that particular scenario. Now you might be wondering that why am I dividing both of these? Okay, because during this time period, whatever activities the INC did, okay, those activities, they were dominated by the moderate nationalists. And and by the time period of 1905, the moderate nationalists, they failed to fulfill their demands in its true essence. Okay, they failed in their aims and objectives. That is why a new phase is going to start, that is going to be the extreme nationalistic phase. That means the extremist nationalistic leaders, now they came to power and they are going to start the movements. So here when we talk, okay, we are aware that the moderate nationalists, they were the people who got their demands fulfilled through constitutional methods, through constitutional methods. And those constitutional methods were three P's, that is petition, prayer and propaganda. Petition, prayer and propaganda. So these were the three constitutional mechanisms through which the moderates got their demands fulfilled. For example, if they had any demand to be fulfilled from the Britishers, they would, what they would do is that they would write a petition, or they would plead in front of the Britisher, or they would create awareness amongst the people so that they can also write the petitions and all to the British, so that their demands could be fulfilled or any particular thing could be rectified. So that was the constitutional mechanism. But what we talk on the extremist is that the extremists, they are going to focus on the extra constitutional mechanism. Okay, now the question is that we are talking about moderates being in this timeline and extremists being in this timeline. If I'm telling you that the moderates, in order to get their demand fulfilled, they adopted the constitutional method, so many of you might wonder that was there a prevalence of constitution at that point of time? So yes, there was a prevalence of constitution. Now do not correlate that thing with the current Indian constitution. Okay, what is a constitution? A constitution, it is a document which a constitution, it is a document that has or that contains laws, rules, regulations that help to govern the country. So obviously the Britishers, when they were ruling at that point of time, obviously the Britishers would also have certain laws, rules and regulations, right, to govern the country. And those laws, rules and regulations, it would also have certain mechanisms which could include that if the population has certain issues with certain type of laws, how they could connect with the government for their grievances. So that mechanism was known as constitutional mechanism. Like in today's time, if we have certain issues, we file a FIR and then the court verdict and all of those things are there. So that is what constitutional. But when we talk about extra constitutional, here also what it means is that, like the moderate nationalist who tried to get their demands fulfilled through a constitutional manner, and the moderates, okay, the moderates, they are going to be non-violent. The moderates, they are going to believe in non-violence. Similar to them, even the extremists, they were the people who believed in non-violence. Okay, here the moderates believed in the constitution. Okay, that means the laws, rules and regulations that were created by the British, so the moderates believed in them. Similarly, here also the extremists also believed in the constitution. That means the laws, rules and regulations that were created by the British, but in order to get their demands fulfilled, the extremists adopted two extra constitutional methods. Now, what were those extra constitutional methods? It means that whatever things are mentioned in the constitution, okay, the moderates had already tried it, but because they failed, then the extremists came to power. So the moderates had already tried the constitutional and the constitutional methods were not working. So the extremists now decided to take the extra constitutional methods. That means the things that were not mentioned within the constitution, we shall be adopting to those methods to get our demands fulfilled. And the extra constitutional methods would also be non-violent in nature. For example, strikes. Obviously, the government would not want strikes to happen. Obviously, the government would not want boycott to happen. Obviously, the government would not want, stoppage of things to happen. So here, okay, in the extra constitutional, what happened is that these extremist leaders or the extremist people, they told that in order to get our demands fulfilled, we will follow the things that are not acceptable by the constitution, or that are not supported by the constitution, or are not mentioned within the constitution, but they are also non-violent and has a purpose. So that means strike. We would follow boycott, that is boycott of British products. We would follow Swadeshi. Okay, that means Atmanirbharta, that means Atma Shakti. Atma Shakti. We would follow, okay, resignations. We would follow we will follow disobedience, that is disobeying the laws and all and everything. So these were what? These were extra constitutional methods that they were speaking about. So here what do we understand is that from the time period of 1885 till 1905, the moderate nationalists, in order to fulfill their particular constitutional, in order to fulfill their aims and objectives, what they are going to do is that they are going to focus on the constitutional methods. How and during this particular point of time, what happens is that they are going to be, utilizing various other mechanisms here. Means they are going to start demanding from the Britishers various, reforms that were to happen in the polity, in the economy, in the society, in the other parts. Okay, and throughout throughout the span of 20 years, they are going to be doing that. Now what happened is that, just try to understand this, between 1885 to 1905, when the moderate nationalists, they started demanding from the Britishers various things at that point of time. Okay, even the people, the common people, they are becoming aware. Okay, they are becoming aware about the work of the moderates, and because they are becoming aware, the common people, they are also becoming politically educated. Now what does politically educated mean? It means that the people are becoming aware as to the laws or anything that was done by the British, how detrimental it was for the people, how it negatively impacted the people, how could it be solved, what needs to be done. So this was the scenario. So when the people, they got to know the issues under the colonial rule, okay, the people's rising consciousness also arose the unity within the people. That means the Britishers, when harassed the people of UP and harassed the people of Maharashtra, so both the areas people, they got to know that we have the same oppressors, and when they got that consciousness, they felt the pain, and that feeling of pain was a uniting factor for them. And overall, if I say, the work that was done by the moderate nationalists between this time period, it led to the rise of nationalism. The rise of nationalism. And when there was the rise of nationalism, okay, so there was one area which was known as Bengal. Bengal, it was considered to be the nerve center of Indian nationalism. Okay, nerve center of Indian nationalism. Why was that? It was because that Bengal, it is going to have a lot of nationalistic leaders who had arisen and who were carrying out activities against the British. And also Bengal, it had the increasing nationalistic consciousness within the people. Okay, so because of this, now what happened is that the Britishers, okay, when they understood that there was the rise of nationalism at that point of time, so the Britishers, now they are going to, think that if the nationalism is going to be there, so it is going to be detrimental for the, British rule in India. Because the more the people are divided, the more it would be beneficial for the British to rule in India, because divide and rule could make their rule much more easier. However, what is going to happen is that here what is going to happen, that when the rising nationalism is going to happen, because of that rising nationalism, what happens is that these particular people, okay, the Britishers, they feel insecure. Okay, the Britishers, they are going to feel insecure, and in that insecurity, what the Britishers are going to do is they are going to declare to divide Bengal. That means they are going to, think of partitioning Bengal. Why? Because Bengal at that point of time, okay, it had a population of more than, okay, it had a population of more than 70 million. So when Bengal, it had a population of more than 70 million at that point of time. Okay, here also you can see, okay, this is going to be the area. Means if you see at that point of time, some part of Odisha, Bangladesh, West Bengal, Assam, okay, these other areas. So all of this, they were known as Bengal. So in so much of a big area, there was more than that much of population. So the particular means by the time period of 1903, okay, the Britishers then think that if we divide the Bengal in a manner, okay, of religious lines, okay, of religious line, that means this particular part, it was to be given to Muslims, okay, and this particular part, it was given to Hindus, then the nationalism would be divided. Why? Because up till now what was happening is that because of the rising nationalism, both the Hindu and the Muslims, they were coming together, okay, they were being united. So this was a threat for the British in India. So now the British thought that if we divide Bengal, automatically the nationalism would reduce, okay. But the question was that what were they to tell the public, that why are they doing the partition? So what they tell is that here they are going to decide on telling the public that managing so much of population, okay, it is very much difficult for us. Okay, the administration is difficult. That is why we need to divide the Bengal in order to make administration much more effective and efficient. So what they do is that in 1903 they are going to make that decision of dividing Bengal. So when they are going to take that decision, okay, they are going to make it public in December 1903. And as soon as this decision was made public in December 1903, what is going to happen is that there is going to be an anti-partition struggle, the anti-partition campaign that is going to be started by the moderates. Why? Because I have already explained the moderate nationalism is going to be there between 1885 till 1905. So what happens is, as soon as this was done, an anti-partition campaign was started by the moderate nationalistic leaders in Bengal. Okay, and when the moderates are going to start it, they are going to do it for nearly 2 years. That is till 1905. And why have I taken 1905? Why? Because the moderates, in spite of conducting the activity anti-partition campaign for 2 years, yet the British in the year of 1905, they are going to decide on partitioning Bengal. That means that for the 2 years that these people did the particular movement, anti-partition movement, okay, it is going to be a failure. Okay, it was a failure. That is the reason the Britishers announced it, right? The partition. If they would have succeeded, the Britishers wouldn't have announced the partition. So that is why the 2 years, what is going to happen is the movement was under the moderate leaders of Bengal. So there were some leaders known as K.K. Mitra, Surendranath Banerjee, and Prithvish Chandra Ray, who are going to be starting the movement at that point of time, okay, in the Bengal. And they are going to keep the movement limited to Bengal. Now, because they were the moderate nationalists of Bengal, so they started the anti-partition campaign, means they did not want the partition of Bengal, because they also knew that if the partition of Bengal happened, automatically the nationalism would reduce. So here they started their anti-partition campaign. But the question was that how were they to do the anti-partition campaign? What was the method? What was the features of it? So we are aware that the moderate leaders, they were constitutional, they followed the constitutional methods. So automatically these leaders would also follow the constitutional methods. That is, they would write petition, they would do the prayers in front of the British, they would create awareness, public meetings, newspapers and everything. and then they are going to show that many people are not in support of your decisions, so it is constitutional mechanisms. They were also, through various newspapers creating awareness, that is Hitabadi, Sanjivani and Bengali, and this has been asked by the UPSC in the examinations. But in spite of them, what happened is that the Britishers then decided that we are going to make the announcement, means we are going to divide the Bengal. So here when they make the announcement public in July 1905, now it was clearly understood, means see, during these 2 years, even under the moderates, many Hindus and Muslims, they are going to come together and they are going to talk to the British that no, we do not accept your particular partition plan. Okay, so when they are going to talk to the British here at that point of time, the British, okay, they sidelined such a massive support, okay, towards the anti-partition. The British sidelined it, and yet the British declared that they would partition the Bengal. And at that point of time, it was quite evident that by 1905, the moderates were not that fruitful in Bengal. And that is why the extremists, they are going to come, means now the extremists, they are going to come to the forefront. Because the extremists from the initial time period only, they were telling that the moderates, in spite of you doing such steps, okay, it would not be that fruitful. Why? Because the Britishers would not listen to you. And many people at that point of time, they were following the extremist also. Means here what I want to tell you is that when I showed you this diagram, okay, of moderate and extremist, okay, so what is going to be the scenario is that, okay, during the time period of 1885 till 1905, okay, we are not saying that the extremists, they were never there in the picture. We are saying that if this is the diagram, okay, so the moderates, they were in majority, whereas the extremists, they were in minority. Okay, however, by the time period of 1905 till 1911, what do we see is that the extremists, they were in majority and moderates, they were in minority. Okay, means the power of extremists, it was somewhat increasing. So what do we understand that the extremists, they were there, however they were not there in majority. Okay, so when the anti-partition movement was happening, the extremists were telling that things would not be that successful, and some people accepted to them. But because the moderates were more in number, so people generally followed the moderates. But by 1905 time period, it was clearly evident that the moderates had failed, and now the extremists, as soon as the partition was made public, the extremists, they are going to come in the picture. And in the Calcutta area, okay, there was a town hall wherein the extremists, they are going to meet, okay, they are going to convene a meeting, and also the people had come to the Calcutta town hall, and there they gave the guidelines of Swadeshi movement and boycott movement. So here in the Calcutta town hall, they are going to pass a proclamation, okay, that here they are going to pass a proclamation about the boycott resolution. And here in the Calcutta town hall, as soon as they passed the boycott resolution on 7th August 1905, the Swadeshi movement was proclaimed. So the anti-partition movement came to an end, because the partition was told that it would happen, and in place of that, a new Swadeshi movement came. So what was the Swadeshi movement? The Swadeshi movement, it was basically the idea that the Swadeshi things, okay, that means the Indian made things, they were to be promoted. So just understand this one thing, that Swadeshi and boycott, they are somewhat simultaneous in nature. So for example, if the Swadeshi movement has to be successful, the boycott was brought. Because if you want, like in today's time, just take today's time, if Indian and Chinese products are there, if we are doing the Swadeshi, that means we are the Indians are also producing that product, and even the Chinese have produced that product, and the Chinese have sent it to India. They have sent that product to India. Now what happens is that The Indian product and the Chinese product, they are competitive in nature. Okay, however, here the Chinese product is 1 to 2 rupees cheap, so the people would buy Chinese in spite of the India producing that same product. So that is why simultaneously, if a boycott movement is started, that boycott Chinese products, so automatically, even if it was less in price, the people, if they are boycotting it, automatically the Swadeshi goods, they would be more. Okay, the indigenous goods, Swadeshi means indigenous. So the indigenous goods, they are going to be purchased more. So similarly, here also, when the Swadeshi movement was proclaimed, simultaneously a boycott movement was also there. Okay, that somewhat was there to aid and promote the particular movement, that is of Swadeshi. Now, during the Swadeshi movement, when it was launched, just 2 months later, on 16th October 1905, the Britishers are going to declare that we are going to make the partition public. Okay, when the Britishers declared that now Bengal would be divided, so they are going to divide the Bengal into two halves. Okay, that means the modern day Bangladesh, you can take it. So the modern day, here the lower half, okay, with the capital of Dhaka, it was given to the Muslims. Okay, whereas the upper part, it was given to Hindus. Now what happened is that when the Britishers on 16th October 1905, when they were to abolish this particular area, sorry, when they were to divide, okay, divide this particular area, what happened is that here they are going to be, when they were to divide this particular area, the people at that point of time, the Hindus and the Muslims, because the Britishers divided it on religious lines, right? So the Hindus and Muslims, they came together, they hugged, they are going to cry each other, they are going to sing the various songs, such as, there was the Bande Mataram and the other songs that are going to be sung. Okay, Amar Sonar Bangla, it was also sung. Okay, so all such patriotic songs are going to be sung. Okay, where, because the people felt the pain, the people did not want Bengal to be divided, but yet it was divided. However, just prior to that, the Swadeshi and the boycott movement had also started. Now, as soon as this particular partition was done, okay, and the Swadeshi and the boycott movement was simultaneously being done. Now when we talk on the Swadeshi and boycott movement, just focus on this idea, okay, that when we talk about, okay, when we are going to talk about the, categorization, the categorization of the Swadeshi and boycott movement, just focus on this aspect. Okay, here when we talk on this, when we talk on this, what can we understand here is that the Bengal partition, okay, the here, as soon as the Bengal partition was done, okay, then the Swadeshi movement, it is going to be starting, and now the Swadeshi movement, it is going to come under the extremist. Now as soon as the Swadeshi movement comes under the extremist, just look at the diversity at which the things are going to be done. Okay, so under the moderates, what are we seeing? Under the moderates, the particular anti-partition, okay, it is limited only to constitutional methods. Constitutional methods per se is that there is going to be, there is going to be what, petitions, okay, there is going to be, the pamphlets, newspapers, okay, then prayers, there was only this. Okay, so this was what, this was the political struggle. Political struggle, that means that if you have certain issues from the government, how are you politically working so that your issues are addressed? So this was the political work that happened. But as soon as the Swadeshi movement was launched, now the movement which was initially just limited to this sector, now the movement under the Swadeshi, it got very much diversified. Because when we talk about the movement under the extremists, so the extremists, from the name itself, we know that they were extra constitutional in nature. And when they are extra constitutional, we know that they are also going to be, doing the movement through the methods that were not acceptable by the constitution. That means not acceptable by the rules and regulations that was set up by the British. So automatically these particular things, why? Because Swadeshi and boycott itself was extra constitutional. How come boycott was extra constitutional? Because would the British constitution allow for a boycott? No, no constitution would allow for a boycott, right? It is not legal, but it is not illegal also at that point of time. So that is why it was considered extra constitutional. So when the extremists they came into the picture, what they did is that they are going to boycott the British salt, okay, the British clothes, the British textile, okay, they are going to boycott the British liquor. Now what happened is that when the British soap, the British matchbox, so when the Indians are boycotting all of these products, so automatically there is going to be a demand for indigenous products in these particular sectors itself. So what happened is that Swadeshi products for these sectors they were created. Swadeshi products, that means indigenous products. So the people started buying the Swadeshi products. Moreover, when the boycott of this was done, along with the boycott here, when we are telling that Swadeshi products for this was created, so this was economic, that means Swadeshi industries that created textile, soap, matchboxes, such Swadeshi indigenous industries were created, okay, that somewhat, okay, supported the boycott. So the Swadeshi movement led to an increase in the indigenous industries that was there. Moreover, when we are talking of the particular boycott, what happens is that not only the economic things were boycotted, but here the Indians they are also going to boycott working under the British. That means working in the British houses, washing the clothes. Okay, so they are also going to be boycotted. So was this done in the anti-partition, that is the constitutional methods? No. So this was done now. Moreover, when we talk about the boycott, okay, so apart from these clothes and everything that was being boycotted, the education, the British educational system that was there in India, it was also boycotted. So when the British educational system in India was boycotted, so automatically in order to in order to because there should not be a stoppage of education, so when they are eliminating this, so in order to create a continuity, what they would do is that they would start an indigenous educational system. Okay, they would start that indigenous educational system. So what they did is, under that they are going to promote the indigenous education, and moreover what they are going to do is that they are going to set up a national council for education, okay, which was Indian in nature, which was indigenous in nature. Moreover, what they also did, that they in the Swadeshi, they, along with the economic aspect, they are also going to promote in the Swadeshi the Indian art. Okay, Indian art, that means painting, okay, paintings, Indian dances, that means Bharatnatyam and everything, Indian music, okay, this was also promoted. So here what we are seeing, just look at the diversity that is there, okay, that is going to be promoted. So here what do we see is boycott of foreign goods, use of festivals and melas for propaganda. That means initially the propaganda, how was propaganda done in the constitutional methods? The propaganda was done through newspapers, okay, through pamphlets, which the Britishers also knew about. Okay, so this was the constitutional method in creating awareness. But here, how was the awareness generated? Through festivals and through melas. That means through Shivaji and Ganpati festivals, okay, people were created awareness as to how they need to contribute in this particular aspect of the, in this particular aspect of year, that is the Swadeshi movement. So that was there. Here there was also emphasis on self-reliance or Atma Shakti. What is Atma Shakti? Atma Shakti is Swadeshi. Atma Shakti is self-reliance. Moreover, Swadeshi or national education was promoted, and under it, establishment of Bengal National College and Bengal Institute of Technology was also done. Okay, in the later on time. Moreover, indigenous enterprises was created. Moreover, Indian culture was also promoted. Okay, so till here what do we see is that there is going to be the methods in which the particular things are going to be done. The slide, it is a bit I forgot to just change it. So here the sub pointing, it is a bit of an issue, but as soon as you get the slide, no, you will get the sub pointers also. Okay, so the all these, okay, from here they are going to be the sub point of this. Okay, and here this is going to be the, okay, then these are the other points. Okay, this is the conclusion. Okay, conclusion of the Swadeshi movement. Now, just try and understand. So here what do we see, that this is the diversity that was created when we talk in the context of the Swadeshi movement. Okay, so that is how the Swadeshi movement was done. Now, what do we understand is that as soon as the Swadeshi movement it was created, okay, as soon as the Swadeshi movement it was created, here what do we see is that Swadeshi movement started, the partition was there in the force, and after the partition was there in force, what we are seeing is that there was the December session of the Congress. Now Congress, it was a political party, okay, which was a pan-India level political party, and this pan-India level political party, what is going to happen is that, okay, when the Swadeshi movement was started, okay, when the Swadeshi movement it is going to be started at that point of time in Bengal, okay, the Congress is going to conduct its session in the Banaras area. And in the Banaras area, there was the moderate leader Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who is going to be the president. And in this particular Congress session, okay, the leaders are going to condemn the Bengal partition. Now, just prior to this, let us just understand. Okay, there were the moderates and extremists. We have clearly understood that there were moderates and extremists. Now, in those moderates and extremists, what do we understand is that the moderates, they did not like the way the extremists function, that is extra constitutional, and the extremists did not like the way the moderates function, that is constitutional, because the extremists generally felt that moderates could not attain that much from the constitutional mechanisms. So both of them, they were not on good terms. However, they had to be together. That means what I indicate is that within the Congress itself, both the sections were there. Moderate nationalists were also there, extremist nationalists were also there. However, from 1885 till 1905, the moderates in Congress were more. However, from 1905, the number of extremists within the Congress, it was rising. Okay, so that is going to be the scenario. So here, what do we understand? Here, what do we understand is the okay. So here what do we understand is when the December session is going to be conducted at that point of time, okay, in the Banaras area, okay, then what do we understand here is that in this particular Banaras area, when it is conducted, what can we see is that the Gopal Krishna Gokhale, he is going to be the next president. Okay, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, he is going to be the next president, and he was a moderate leader. So when Gopal Krishna Gokhale, he is going to be the moderate leader, what happens is that in spite of in spite of the session being presided by a moderate leader, the chairman was a moderate leader, yet the Congress is going to take the decision of supporting the Swadeshi movement. The Congress on its official level, okay, condemned the partition policy of British, and also at this point of time there was the viceroy whose name was Curzon. So Curzon had also taken a lot of policies that were very much reactionary in approach. So here, when such a decision was taken, in that particular decision, what can we understand is that the extremist, okay, the extremist, they were very much happy. Why? Because in spite of the moderates presiding the Congress chairmanship, and the moderates never liked the extremist, yet the moderates supported the Swadeshi and boycott movement. That means that the extremists were doing something good. So because of this, the extremists, they were motivated, and when they were motivated, they then spread the Swadeshi and boycott movement in the other parts of Bengal. Just keep this in mind that up till that point of time, okay, the movement, it was limited to Bengal itself. Okay, it was limited to Bengal. So because of this, the extremists, they are going to spread the movement in other parts of Bengal. And during this point of time only, they are also going to initiate the National Council for Education. I have already explained this up. Okay, in the diversity of the movement. Now what happens is that at that point of time, by the time period of 1906, okay, when now the extremists had spread the Swadeshi boycott to all of Bengal, now the extremists were of the opinion that the movement, it needs to spread, the movement should spread to the whole of the India. That is, it should spread in the national level if we want to defeat the Britishers, if we want an impact to happen. Why? Because in the previous some time ago, I just mentioned it to you that we boycotted the various British economic products. So when we boycotted the various British economic products, what did we do in that? The Britishers, when they sold the foreign made liquor to India, the Britishers, when they sold the foreign textiles to India, so automatically they were also taxed. The foreign made liquor had certain taxes, that when the Indians, or when it was sold in India, some proportion of tax also went into the British treasury at that point of time. So when these particular products, they were also a source of income for the British. But now in Bengal, these British products, they were boycotted. So automatically when the people are not purchasing it, so the Britishers are not getting the tax, and that is why it was a loss of revenue for the British. Now when it was a loss of revenue for British, and it was very much negatively hampering the British in Bengal. So when just in Bengal, when the boycott was done, it impacted the British in such a negative level. Imagine if that same boycott was done at a national level, what level of impact would it have on the Britishers? So the extremist nationalists, they wanted the Swadeshi boycott to spread all over India. But the moderates, they were telling that no, we want you guys to keep the movement limited to Bengal itself. But the extremists wanted it to spread, and they knew that if they want the movement to spread towards the whole of India, that means in the whole of India, so the only party that could help do it was Congress. Because if Congress chairman was an extremist, because we know that every year the Congress had a new chairman. Okay, now it was not like if in this year there was A chairman, the next year there has to be compulsorily B, okay, or C. A cannot preside once again in a continuous manner. That was not the scenario. A could preside in a continuous manner, but it was just that the chairmanship tenure was 1 year. So it was understood that if the Congress chairman, because Congress was a pan-India party, if the Congress chairman was an extremist, that extremist, if told that this particular movement should spread to the whole of India, then the Congress's official goal would be the Swadeshi boycott, and all the members from all of India of the Congress, they would start doing the Swadeshi boycott. So that was the aim of the extremist. So that is why they had decided that in the 1906 session of December of the INC, they wanted an extremist leader to preside the chairmanship of the Congress. However, what is going to happen is that the moderates, because now obviously even in today's time, when you see the big parties, what do you understand? That those big parties, they are not going to just appoint anybody. It is through voting mechanisms that the party's chairmen are appointed. So similarly, at that point of time also there was voting, and in that voting a new chairman was appointed, and that was a new chairman was elected, and that is going to be Dadabhai Nauroji. So Dadabhai Nauroji, he was a person who was a moderate leader. However, Dadabhai Nauroji was respected by all the people. So that is why even the extremists accepted his, and even the particular moderates accepted him. So Dadabhai Nauroji knew that there was a slowly ongoing tussle between the moderate and the extremist. So here, when the Congress session was conducted in the Calcutta area, So the Congress is going to declare its official goal here, and that goal was Swaraj. So Swaraj was declared as the official goal of Congress. However, this Swaraj, it was not mentioned. This Swaraj, it was not explained upon. The Swaraj, for the first time within the Congress Charter, it was mentioned in 1906, but it was not, elaborated upon as to what does Swaraj actually mean. Because when we talk upon Swaraj, my dear friends, just understand this, that the Swaraj, okay, we can divide the Swaraj into two connotations. One Swaraj means Swaraj, it can be interpreted in two manners. The first one is going to be independence. Swaraj means independence. The second means Swaraj means self government. Okay, self government, independence means complete independence from the British, whereas self government, it means that the whole of the administration within India, it was to be taken care by whom? By the Indians, and only the higher authority would be the British. So that was the idea that was being told here. So what do we understand is, here the idea of Swaraj was told, the goal of INC was mentioned as Swaraj, but what would be the meaning of it was not mentioned. So, and apart from this, it was also told that the Swadeshi, the boycott, and the national education was also supported by the Congress officially. Now, when this happened, the the extremists, their motivation was now at the cloud nine. Why? Because now the extremists were like, the moderates yet and the INC yet has supported our movement of Bengal. Okay, so they are going to be more motivated, and they are going to do the Swadeshi boycott movement in Bengal much more vigorously. And now they were so motivated that now they wanted the movement to go outside Bengal. So through 1906 and 1907, the extremists, they are going to do the movement very much diligently in Bengal. Okay, and simultaneously the Britishers are also watching the movement. Why? Because this Swadeshi boycott, it was creating losses for the Britishers. So during this time period, the extremists were doing it, and the extremists were also telling the moderates that we need to take the movement outside Bengal, whereas the moderates are telling, no, you need to keep the movement within Bengal. So there was the ongoing tussle once again, and now the extremists, they had thought that in the year of 1907 December, when the Indian National Congress session will be conducted, we want an extremist leader to preside on the chairmanship, so that the Swadeshi boycott could spread over to the whole of the country. So here there was the very big tussle that was there, and simultaneously the Britishers were also looking at the scenario. And Britishers at that point of time only, they are going to tell to the Indian nationalists that we are bringing certain reforms. And the moderate sections, now see, here when I tell you, okay, on the reforms, just look at this here. Okay, when we talk on the extremist and the moderates, okay, when we talk on the extremist and the moderates, what do we understand in the extremist and moderate is that the extremist, okay, these are the moderates, these are the extremists. The extremist okay, these are the moderates, these are the moderates, these are the extremists. And in this particular division, what you can see is that here these particular, okay, the particular moderates, they demanded just constitutional reforms, whereas the extremists, they demanded Swaraj. Okay, that Swaraj, it can be either the self government, and initially it was self government only. Okay, but then the moderates, they only demand certain of the reforms. Okay, whereas they demanded fully Swaraj, that means self government. Okay, so here what is going to happen is that when we talk on this particular scenario, the Britishers, what they did is, they are going to be, simultaneously, when the tussle between the moderates and the extremists, they were going on, the Britishers, they were simultaneously looking at the scenario as to what was happening. Okay, and Britishers in 1907, they are going to tell to the people, they are going to tell to the nationalistic leaders that we are bringing certain reforms. And the moderates, they always had wanted reforms. They were the people who did not want much big things, who did not want greater things, but they wanted little things that could bring development in India. Okay, that means certain types of reforms in the economy, in the polity, in the society, okay, in the various aspects of the sectors in India. So they wanted the reforms. So when those reforms were told that by the Britishers that we are bringing the reforms, at that point of time the moderates were like, oh, we are getting our reforms, so why to continue the movement Swadeshi and boycott? Because the moderates had the idea that if we are doing a movement, that movement is to attain a certain objective, and our objective was reform. Now when we are getting that reform, so why to continue with the movement? Okay, but on the other hand, the extremists were telling that we want to expand the movement towards the whole of India, but the moderates are telling no, you do not need to do that, we are already getting our reforms, right? So here now the extremists were very much on a affirmed attitude that in the 1907 December session of the Congress, they want an extremist leader to preside, and they wanted Lala Lajpat Rai or Bal Gangadhar Tilak to preside. However, the extremist leader could not preside, but a moderate leader, that is Rash Bihari Ghosh, became the president of the Surat session of 1907. Why? Because Congress had this norm. Okay, it had a norm whenever it appointed the chairman. And the norm was that in whichever area, in whichever province that particular Congress session was being conducted, anyone born from that province, they would not be eligible to contend for the seat of the chairmanship. And Surat at that point of time, which today is in Gujarat, at that point of time was in the area of Bombay province. Bombay province of that time, it included both Gujarat and Maharashtra. So anyone who would have born in the Bombay province could not preside on the seat of the Surat session. So that is why Bal Gangadhar Tilak, he was rejected. And the Raj Bihari Ghosh is going to become the next president. Now Raj Bihari Ghosh and Raj Bihari Bose, just remember that. Raj Bihari Bose was a revolutionary, Bose Subhash Chandra Bose. Okay, correlate that. Raj Bihari Ghosh was a nationalistic leader. So here in the 1907 session, it was told by the moderates that you extremists, let us just stop the movement. We have gotten our reforms. So the extremists were against this idea, and the extremists are going to tell that no, we are not going to stop this particular movement, we want it to continue. So moderates are like, no, you need to stop it. Extremists are like, if you want to stop it, we are quitting the Congress. Moderates were like, it's okay, you can quit the Congress, we do not have any issue. So then at that point of time in the Surat session, the extremists, they are going to leave the Congress, they are going to quit from the Congress, and the Congress is then only going to have the moderates. And this is how from 1907, means the Swadeshi and the boycott, it is going to be there till 1907, and after that the Swadeshi and boycott, it is going to decline. Okay, that is going to be the scenario here. Okay, Swadeshi and boycott, it is going to decline. Now here when we talk on the positives of the Swadeshi, that what did the Swadeshi do? Okay, what were the things that the Swadeshi created? What was the positive of the Swadeshi? So here the achievement of the Swadeshi movement was that up till now not many people had participated, because when we talk about the moderates, okay, we'll also look into the difference between the moderates and extremists in the next session. Okay, so here what do we know is that up till now when the moderates, they were there, okay, so the moderates, they generally did not believe in the capacity of the masses. The moderates generally believed that if any national movement was to happen, it was to happen only through the political leaders, only through the nationalistic leaders, and the common people need not participate. Okay, the movement can only be done by the political leaders. So that was the idea of moderates. But the extremists were of the idea that even the masses should participate in the political movement. Okay, only then the strength of the movement can be seen. That is why in the Swadeshi and boycott, there were strikes, there was boycott, and everything was included, in which the common people could also participate. But in the moderate constitutional methods, the common people could not actually fully participate in the movement. So that was one another aspect. Okay, so here what do we see is that the untouched section who had not participated in any movement up till now, these people also participated. That is the students and women. Moreover, what do we see? That some of the political movement trends that are going to emerge in the coming decades was also seen here. That means Gandhiji, now see, we are talking about a time period here that is of 1905 to 1907. Okay, we are talking about the Swadeshi movement from 1905 to 1907. Okay, so whereas when we talk about Gandhiji, so Gandhiji, he is going to come to India in the year of 1915. Okay, and after that Gandhiji is going to start the activities that he is going to be doing in India. So what we are seeing is that Gandhiji, he was known for what? Passive resistance, civil disobedience, okay, and all these things. So the things that had emerged during the Gandhian time, okay, it did not actually emerge during the Gandhian time, but it was also seen in these movements. That means that major trends of later movements, okay, it had emerged here only, that is non-cooperation and passive resistance. Okay, non-cooperation, that means what? Not cooperating with the British in the Swadeshi boycott. Okay, the Indians, they were also resisting the British, so that was also the idea. So here what do we see is that those trends, okay, so when those trends are emergent here only, so the people, they were made aware about the political movements of what is non-cooperation, what is passive resistance, and people had the idea now, and people were somewhat trained. So when the people were already trained little bit manner, that is why Gandhiji, when he returned in 1915, and after that when Gandhiji started all these trends, the people, they were not totally new to it. The people had some idea as to what is passive resistance and civil disobedience. Okay, so it somewhat acted as a base for the start of the later movements. Moreover, the movement also extended to culture, science, literature, industry. We looked into the diversity of the movement. Then it also undermined the colonial hegemony. Up till now, there was the idea that the British could not be defeated, the British could not be suppressed, and the Indians did not have any power. But with the Swadeshi boycott, it was clearly a message was given that we had the power to bring you to your knees. Okay, you were facing a lot of losses. You were devastated, economically devastated. You were tensed because of our movement. So the colonial hegemony, it was undermined. That we, the masses are powerful, the Indians are powerful. Moreover, the people, they were educated in bolder forms of politics. What is bolder forms of politics? Extra constitutional. Okay, the normal politics was petition prayer, but now taking a bold step means defying the British was bold enough. So that was what? A bolder form of politics. Okay, so this was one another aspect that we understand in this particular segment of the Swadeshi aspect. Okay, so the question here is that here, when we talk about the extremist, okay, when we talk about the extremist, the question is that who are the extremists? Okay, here I had explained this context of extremist. Okay, I had told you that these are the extremists and these are the moderates. Okay, so here we shall also be understanding the extremist, okay, in the next session. Okay, on what is the difference between moderates and extremists. So here I just wanted to explain this particular event to you guys. Okay, so with this session I'll just keep, okay, I will keep this session this much. Okay, and then I shall see you up in the next session, my dear friends. All right, and then we shall continue with the next most important event that happened in the Indian history, and that is very much relevant for your UPSC. Our agenda is to keep things short, crisp, precise, to the point, and UPSC oriented. Our focus is generally on the mindset of the UPSC, that how the UPSC thinks, what the UPSC expects from you, and we generally do things in that manner itself. So I'll see you up in the next session. Thank you everybody for watching me, for watching Civil 360. Jai Hind and thank you.